Hello, everyone. Today is chess puzzle. Let's visualize this.
Yeah.
Okay, so white has a queen on b7,
Okay.
a bishop on d6, pawns on a4 and g3, another bishop on g2, a pawn on h2,
Right.
a rook on e1, and the king on h1.
Right.
Now for black. A rook on c8,
Okay.
king on g8, bishop on g7,
Uh-huh.
pawn on h7, pawn on b6, pawn on f6, pawn on g6,
Okay.
another bishop on f5, and finally a queen on b2.
Okay.
Let's get this going.
Right.
White to move.
Looking at this board,
Yeah.
that black queen on b2 really stands out right away.
Yeah.
It's pinning white's bishop on g2.
Uh-huh.
So that restricts white's movement a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
However, white's queen on b7 is pretty active and is positioned in a way that could potentially attack the black king side.
That b7 queen feels like the key here.
Yeah.
You've got that bishop on d6, controlling some important diagonals,
Right.
potentially cutting off some escape routes for the black king.
For sure.
And the black king itself looks kind of cramped with those pawns in front of it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That coordination between white's queen
Right.
and the bishop on d6 is definitely something to watch.
Mm.
The f7 square,
Yeah.
in particular,
Mhm.
looks like a target.
Mm.
Black's bishop on f5 is well placed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
defending some key squares,
Yeah.
but it could also potentially be overloaded.
Overloaded.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, that bishop on f5 is responsible for defending multiple squares.
Oh.
Important squares, like potentially even
Yeah.
e6 square.
Okay.
So if white can create a threat that forces that bishop to move or to defend something else,
Right.
it could open up some other opportunities.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this tension between black's queen
Yeah.
immediately threatening the bishop
Uh-huh.
and white's potential attack on the king side.
Exactly.
It feels like white has to find a way to exploit that vulnerability on the king side before black can capitalize on that pin.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
White has the initiative here,
Okay.
being the one to move.
Uh-huh.
The challenge is to find a move that creates a dangerous threat immediately.
Right. Right.
One that black absolutely has to respond to.
Okay.
And ideally one that leads to a sequence of forcing moves.
Okay, so thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
Moving the queen on b7 seems like the logical move.
Right.
Just given its active position.
Uh-huh.
But to where?
Yeah.
Straight checks might be easily blocked.
Right.
We need something more subtle.
Yeah.
Something that forces a specific response from black.
Exactly.
And opens up further possibilities.
Think about the vulnerability of that f7 square.
Okay.
It's only defended by the black king.
Yeah.
And then consider how white's other pieces could potentially support an attack there.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
The bishop on g2 is pinned, so it can't directly participate yet.
Yeah.
The rook on e1 is undeveloped.
Uh-huh.
But that bishop on d6 is pointed right at the king side.
Exactly. So the question is, how can white use the position of the queen
Right.
and that d6 bishop to make an immediate threat on f7?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I see it.
All right.
So after considering all the different possibilities, the answer is queen moves from b7 to f7.
Okay.
Black's king moves from g8 to f7.
Right.
White's bishop moves from g2 to d5.
Gotcha.
Black's bishop moves from f5 to e6.
No.
White's rook moves from e1 to e6.
Okay.
Black's rook moves from c8 to c1.
You're right.
And white's rook moves from e6 to e1. Checkmate.
Wow.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Thank you for listening.